Welcome to Straight Lines. This is where life lessons meet leadership, where business gets a front row seat, and where you'll get a blueprint for success. Whether you're managing a team, building a brand, or just trying to lead yourself better, you're in the right place. Because here in Straight Lines, we believe the shortest distance between purpose, progress, and truth, clarity, and action. Straight Lines brought to you by Blue Book Sports, has been the game's trusted directory since 1909. And now it's where businesses connect directly with players, parents, and coaches. Create a profile, promote your services, and join the community. If your business wants to stand out, it's time to get in the book. Download Blue Book Sports today from Apple or Google Play. Really excited today to be joined by a guy near and dear to me, actually. We might talk a little bit about that, but just an amazing basketball coach, Hall of Fame women's coach at this point, but, he would be a Hall of Fame men's coach if he was decided to do that at some point, in the past 44 years coaching basketball. And was also an administrator, athletic director for two schools for 32 years, and has affected and impacted so many folks over the course of his life, including yours truly. So really excited to have the head women's basketball coach at Jefferson University and former athletic director at Allentown College and Philadelphia Textile, Philadelphia University, Jefferson University, all the same location, by the way, but changed names a few times. And Tom Shirley, welcome aboard. I can't thank you enough for being with me.
Tim, my pleasure. I'm happy to be with you. And I always say you made me a genius because you were my last hire at Allentown College before I left as AD. I told Father Gambit you'd be the man, and you proved me right. You were the man.
Well, sometimes even a blind squirrel finds a nut, but I am, I am forever grateful, for the opportunity, and I'm happy I made you proud. I think,
absolutely,
I made the most out of it, and, continue to do so by telling the stories and sharing people that I know, the network, the friends, and still trying to do great things. So let's get into this stuff. So, I know a lot of people on it. The climate has changed. As you know, I retired in August. And, some of the things, it's just kind of getting a little bit stale, I think, overall. I don't know if stale's the right word, but, a little more challenging, I guess, is a real word. So, let's talk about how NIL, which maybe not so much for you, name, image, likeness, probably more so perhaps the transfer portal. How's that affected you and your recruiting? And really all this really came about significantly in the last, 4 or 5 years probably. How's that affect you, Tom?
Well, I would say within Division II, the NIL part has not really leaked in except for a couple of the higher level schools, Grand Valley State being an example. But the portal has affected everyone. And my quick synopsis of the portal is it has turned Division II and Division III into the G League of basketball, because now you're going to go to a Kings or a DeSales or a Jefferson or an East Stroudsburg, and you're going to have a good to very good year, and you're going to put yourself in the portal just to see what's out there, with the thought being that if I could go from Jefferson to Marist and I could pick up $15,000 a year for 3 more years, that's $45,000 I wouldn't have had. So I just think we're being treated like I'll come for a tryout, which was a year, maybe 2. And I see most kids aren't going to stay past their second year because leaving with 1 year of eligibility is not as attractive as leaving with 2 or 3. So I think, and the other problem that's for the younger people is if I do take a transfer from the portal, that's a high school young lady that is not going to get an opportunity, at least from me. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I mean, it's we had this conversation the other day, if I was still doing it. And Tom, almost exactly to your point, do you go out and get those, and I used to always get the fringe Division I kids for a long time till costs and other things change. But do you go back to that philosophy, try to get a kid that's, pretty good, but he's already a senior and nothing's happening. And you get him and say, look, after a year or two and things are going well, you want to move on, I'm here to help you. I don't know if I could handle that personally. I
Yeah.
really like, the groups of kids together for 4 years. And you get to know them. And, I think what you see in these bigger schools now, they're rebuilding the rosters every year,
Yeah, I
so
agree.
where's all the relationships? I don't know.
Yeah.
But, that seems to be perhaps a strategy going forward. And you're right, that high school kid really getting squeezed out of this. So I think from their perspective, they need to come up with a different strategy to kind of move on. But,
I
I
think the
think with,
big thing, Tim, is if you're willing
yep,
to compromise and say, I'm about wins and culture, you're going to go more with the high school kid that you can cultivate over 3, 4, 5 years, as opposed to the transfer who's already, established a culture at the other institution and now might come and try to tell you how they used to do it there. If you're about the wins and you're conscious that I have to pay my mortgage, you're going to go to the portal and you're going to take the one-time kids that can help you win that year. That's not my way. I'd rather take a kid out of high school and cultivate them, but maybe it's because I've been doing it so long, but I'm not a fan of the portal. And I think you're going to see changes because it's out of control. It's just out of control.
yeah, it's the Wild West, up and down, up and down every level. And there's no loyalty. There's no, I'm cut out of the same cloth. That, the culture and, relationships. And, as I tell my players, I'm here for you always,
Yeah.
well beyond your playing days, as you have been and still
Yep.
continue to do. And I'm not a fan of it either. And the old way was a little better. You had to take some ownership into it. You had to be accountable for, a move or a transfer. You had to go to the AD and get permission
Yep.
to speak. I mean, that was okay. That was
Yep.
fine. So I mean, it's kind of I don't know. It kind of takes a lot of the fun out of it. So, from an overall recruiting standpoint, are there inefficiencies? Are there things that, like, gosh, this just doesn't, besides the portal, obviously, there are things that don't work. This is a mess.
Well, I think the one misconception that I really think parents need to understand, and even some athletic administrators, the NCAA, quote unquote, gets blamed for a lot, but their job is really enforcement of rules that are established by committees made up of college presidents, college administrators, college coaches. So the NCAA is really not to blame. It's the current coaches, the current colleges, administrators that are making these rules that the NCAA is expected to enforce. And every time they go to enforce it, there's a judge that is really making decisions for institutions. So it's really a trickle up effect, if you will, that is affecting it very, very much.
That's great information. I think people are really misled on the NCAA,
Agreed.
easily to blame for lots of things. And sure, I think blame goes all the way around the board. But, I think some modifications, and they've pretty much always done this to make it right somehow, some way. Problem is these days, not so much at Jefferson or other schools, the big schools are just dictating a lot of things that are going on. So it kind of gets a little bit, concerning overall. But I think overall, they always do the right thing. And again, to your point, man, the coaches and committees and administrators, they're actually putting these rules forth to try to
Yep.
make things better. And then they go to enforce them. And then they've got some issues.
Just a historical record for your audience. When I first got into this business, Division 1, 2, and 3 sat around the table together with ping pong paddles, and we voted by counting ping pong paddles. And Division 1, let's just say Division 2 and 3 wanted to start basketball practice on November 1st. Well, at the time, they could outvote the Division 1 schools that still had to follow those rules. That's why we reclassified to divisions, and each division is making their own rules because the big boys and big girls were getting outvoted by 2 and 3.
Wow, how about that too? Another great historical point. I didn't know that either. Didn't really need to pay attention a lot to it, but yeah, wow. So they get outvoted, and there's a lot of Division 3 schools. I think 400 at least.
There's more Division 3s than any other division.
Than the other score,
Yeah.
And then 2s have under 200.
I think we're about 242.
Okay, and
But I
then
think the
Division
other
One.
thing you're going to see is you're going to have to see some of these smaller Division I schools that can't hang with the big dogs are going to have to make a decision. Hartford being one that went from Division I
Yep.
to Division III. So I think you're going to see more schools looking at 2, but if they want to get out of the scholarship model, they'll go right to 3.
Yeah, you are seeing that with Hartford, and I think there's some other ones. They have to make a decision. You get squeezed out if you're a mid-major. Why are you doing it? You're probably budget's ridiculous. You're probably losing money. And you have to be, depending upon what all sports you've got. Even if you don't have football, you're going to lose money.
Yep.
So you're right. I mean, I think we'll see more and more of that change, over time. Hey, when you go out recruiting, Tom, are there things that, like kind of non-negotiables, things that the intangibles that you look like? I mean, obviously, you're a terrific player evaluator over the years. I've had great teams, great players. What turns you off if you go watch somebody?
Well, the first thing I always speak to at camps is the very first question we're going to ask the AAU coach, the high school coach, is she a good kid? Is she a good kid? And if there's hesitancy or, maybe, then we're going to step away from that. But little things that I look at that people will probably laugh when I say this, but I go to an AAU event. Who is carrying the backpack? If dad's carrying the backpack and mom is sneaking over the Gatorade, that's a problem. Because we ain't carrying your backpack and we're not sneaking, your mom's not sneaking Gatorade. So the self-sufficiency of a young person. And then also when they're in between games, are they sitting with mom and dad or are they sitting with their teammates? So you look at that stuff first, if you will. And then you look at the interactions they have with their coaches, the interactions they have with their teammates, with the officials. And then, of course, you're checking on their grades and making sure that they, if it's a school that requires SATs, that they took their SAT, are they in AP courses? Are they in maybe lower level courses? So there's a bunch of things that go into it before you're even going to decide what to do. I always use the analogy, recruiting is like dating. We have to meet players and players have to meet schools. So however you meet. But once that relationship starts, you really try to dig deep on the non-athletic things first. And then, and a good example, Tim, I will call someone up for the first time. We've never met, and they will not answer my phone call. But the phone is in their hand. But if I text, they'll read it right away and call me back. But my point is, in my case, there's a man on the phone with $250,000 for you. Can you give me the courtesy of picking up the phone? And then the voicemail's not set up yet, or it's set up and it's full and not accepting messages. Like, come on, you're trying to sell something here. Let's get in sales mode. So those are my little non-athletic nuances before I really even get serious about watching you play.
I think the same holds true on pretty much all sport. We talk about that with baseball guys, who's carrying the bag, the
Right.
catcher's bag. Thing weighs 100 pounds and, mom or dad's dragging it to the dugout.
Yep.
And then they bring, I'm like, get that crap out of here, man. That's terrible. But the point that kids don't communicate, I mean, it's the phone, a computer.
Yep.
I mean, just face-to-face conversations. I think you have been terrific about it. I think myself, I always kind of pride of myself. We're more than coaches, we're trying to prepare them for life.
Yep, I agree.
What's going on after you graduate?
Right, exactly.
I was teased, I'm not going to be up in your social media stuff while you're playing for me, but just know when it's out there, ain't going anywhere. You think you can delete it. You cannot, but when you graduate, you will be my Facebook friend because I want to know what you're doing. I want to know if you're married. I want to know if you have kids. I want to know if a job, and I want to know if you need me, and you're the same way. I'm here for you always, as you have been for me for 4 decades. But I think those are really important. I think if young coaches out there can get their head around that, sooner the better. They're going to make an impact that'll last a long life.
I mean, you really, in a sense, the parents are handing their son or daughter off to us. So they have to really feel comfortable and feel secure that we're going to help take their child to the next level, whether it's looking someone in the eye, whether it's a handshake, whether it's opening a door for somebody. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Just little things that we need to reinforce, or in some cases, we need to teach.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I think your team's probably the same way with you. I mean, I can't tell you how many restaurants or airports or hotels or somebody each once a year, a manager would come over and say, "Can't tell you how well behaved your kids
Yep.
are," right?
Yep.
But they don't have a choice, for
Yep.
one. But still, it's the culture, and don't
Yep.
embarrass the team and the organization,
Yep.
and everybody around it. I think it's always pretty darn good, advice for. I worry about the young coaches that are coming in and. And I think I was that way when I was younger. Win and loss. I mean, I'll stay here for a while, build my, thing between the lines. And, and I was successful in spite of me. Players did well. But outside the lines,
I agree.
is where the impact is made.
I think for the younger coaches, it's important to realize, these young people, they're not your bros. You're the leader, and they're never going to get here. They got to be here. And it's got to be, you have to be a leader. You have to tell them, set expectations. I like to say it's all how the cement dries. Like if you let being late be okay, they're always going to be late. They always say if you give them an inch, they'll take a yard. My thing is, if I only give them an inch, that's all they're going to want to get back. Like, don't give them anything. Let them just fight back for 1 inch. So
and that makes a lot of sense. Visiting here with the legendary Tom Shirley, women's basketball coach, Hall of Famer. Are you in any Hall of Fames yet besides the sales? Are you in any college basketball?
I'm actually this September. I'll be going into the Pennsylvania State Hall of Fame, Sports
there
Hall
you
of
go.
Fame, whatever. Yeah. So I mean, the sales, Philly U, local neighborhood ones. Yeah.
The National Women's.
No, I'm not good enough for that. No.
Oh, I know a guy that knows a guy, so we need to get that taken care of. If you're enjoying Straight Lines and the conversations we're having, I would love to bring that same energy to your organization. I speak to teams, conferences, schools, and groups about leadership, resilience, and living a life that will cast a large shadow, which is a new book I've got coming out October 1st. Be pretty good, if I do say so myself. No, I think it's going to be great. If you're looking for someone who connects, encourages, and inspires you with real life stories that matter, I'm available for your keynote and special events. Please reach out to me at CoachTimNeiman.com. I would be honored to serve your group. Back here with Tom Shirley, head basketball coach, women's basketball coach at Jefferson University, and an athletic director for 32 years. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well, and how you juggled all that. Last two kind of questions on the coaching side. Has your philosophy changed over the years? And probably has to have, because of way back where you started and where, things are today.
I would say my basketball philosophy has not really changed much. I mean, we still want to play a certain way. We try to create recruiting situations where we're recruiting similar type people through the years. I think, we've learned more and more, there's times when you got to make sure the ball's in the hands of your better players, but there's other times when you're in a different mode, you're trying to protect the lead. So I would say in the game itself, not very much, but I think my philosophy off the court more has changed as the next generations have really become more sensitive and more, I would say, less approachable, because they've kind of lived more of a cloistered life, I think, in terms of not being out and about like we were when we were young. Now, keep in mind, I'm 71 years old, but it's just a different. So I think there's a need for more positivity with these latest generations. There's a need for pat in the backs for things that we never got pats on the back for. I think the biggest thing was when we grew up, there was an expectation. You had a job, go to school. You had a job. You were a caddy. Be the best caddy you can be the best student you'd be. If you weren't doing that, then you'd hear from your father that you're not doing that. But there wasn't a lot of like, way to go, you did a great 18 holes there, or way to go, you scored 4 points. That was not a big deal. Today, that's a big deal, because in a lot of these games, every game is a family reunion. I mean, grandmom's there, pop-pop's there, mom and dad there, cousins are there, in-laws are there. So it's like it's turned in from a you generation to a we generation. Like parents will say, we got a game. Well, you don't have a game.
Yeah.
The child has a game. So I think you have to respect that, and you have to engage the parents and grandmom and all that. But so that part of it's changed. I think the sensitivity issue has changed.
Yeah, you have to meet them where they're at, and sometimes that's hard to do.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, well, I call them verbal bouquets,
Yes,
which
that's a good
they
line.
need more. They need more of.
Yeah.
I think I always had like this 10-to-1 rule. For the 10 times, I let you have it, I'll give you one verbal bouquet.
Right. Yeah.
But that might be a little closer these days to like 2-to-1 or 1-to-1. I mean, they just need to be, the confidence lacks, and they don't handle failure. And I think that's huge in coaching, is trying to get them past all that adversity, and having a short memory and getting on to the next play, the next inbounds play, the next defensive sequence, whatever it comes, but they dwell on what had just happened, and then they become a mess. And I think that carries on and off the court as well. I think that probably is the same way, they're so afraid to fail a test or quiz, or right. I mean, kind of the same.
Well, there's now always an excuse. Like if a kid goes in the game and shoots 0 for 4, it's like, well, I didn't get enough minutes to get warmed up. How about you just missed 4 shots? You're out. Like to me, it's pretty simple. But I think the other thing I would add is I think recruiting has become much more regionalized, because, when I grew up, and I played baseball, my dad took me to the field, dropped me off, did what he had to do, picked me up. How'd you do? I was 1 for 4 and I caught 2 balls. Way to go. Now, families don't miss anything, and the kids want that same family interaction when they move to college. So I find it much easier to coach and recruit regionally than you do like trying to get a kid from Florida that you saw at AAU that's really good and we have their major. They for the most part, they don't really want to go away from home.
Yeah, I think that's become more evident as well. And I mean, you touch on a thing I call transfer of blame. I'm sure you do as well. Something I wrote about in the Team Killers book. And I mean, it's easy. Yeah, I didn't I was 0 for 4 in the shooting category, but I only touched it 4 times. If I would have touched it 8 times, I would have been 4 for 8. I mean, it's always somebody else's fault. And another thing that we have to try to get them to understand that, take accountability. It's okay. It's okay. And move on, learn from it, and move on. Last really question, coaching wise, Tom, how do you define success these days? I think I know the answer, and I think again we're kind of a brother, another brother. But how do you define it these days?
Well, you can't escape the fact that in any coaching position, winning and losing matters. So you're obviously, every time you tee it up, you're looking to get a win, and you're looking to, for a younger coach, you're looking to keep their job, you're looking to continue to pay their mortgage. For people like you and I, it's just that we're very competitive by nature. We want to win. But I think when you look at the package, it's about, going to graduation. It's about helping them get an internship. It's about trying to be a reference for them for the first job. It's about a big one for me is getting invited to weddings. Like as you age, you don't necessarily always want to go. But if it's one of your kids, you're going because it's really special for you to be invited, and it's special for them to invite you. And I want to be there to support them. And, they let you know about the birth of their kids or their new job. And we have an annual alumni event that's very, very well attended. And it's like their family reunion for players. So we really work hard at keeping that together. But, as you age out of this, it's all about what did you collectively do for an individual put in your charge by the parents, not guess what? In 4 years, we won 100 games. 80% of the people don't care, and 20% are jealous that you did. So don't worry about it.
That's right. And I think it means, those things you described means a heck of a lot to those players, alumni, and, hey, Coach Shirley's here, great to see him. And you reminisce a little and hear the same stories, but that's okay. It means a lot to them. And that's part of being a leader. And you only weren't responsible just for your team. You were responsible for 32 years for all kinds of teams as being an athletic director. So how was that for you meshing, being a head basketball coach of, basketball is important to lots of folks. Not like some other sports like golf, tennis, nothing against them, but people go to the basketball games. How was that managing all those years as a basketball coach, but also 32 years as a director of athletics?
I think before I tell you how I manage it, I think the funny story is I met with Father Gambit to be hired as a director of athletics in 1981. And while we were standing in what was to be my office out on the court were four young ladies. And he said, by the way, do you want to coach women's basketball? Because I had played at Allentown when I was a youngster. And I said, my only experience is coaching 10 to 12-year-old boys in Plymouth Junior ABA, a team called the Ravens. He goes, well, you know what? They stink. You could probably coach them. So I said, okay, I'll coach them. Would there be any additional compensation? He said, absolutely. I want to say a mass a month for you. So like Bill Murray said, I had that going for me. So I
Yeah,
took
that's
it,
right.
and that was the
Which is nice.
extent of my experience. And I really was never intended to be a coach AD. I was intended to be an AD. So I just kind of fell into it. And then when I left Allentown to go to Textile, it was a 60-40 job, like 60% coach, 40% associate AD. Then 2 years later, the AD left and they merged it. So I became both. But I really would say up to the very end, I enjoyed it. I mean, it's nice to be in a position of authority where you can affect change. And I felt like I was able to do that. We added sports. We joined a different league. But the day-to-day management, I mean, I think the biggest thing is you're managing different teams, but you're managing different personalities. You know, like for example, and I'm not saying this is accurate. I'm just using an example. Like, let's say the women's team complains all the time. You never hear from the golf team. The baseball team hates the coach, even the freshmen that come in hate the coach and they don't even know him yet. So it's like knowing the nuances of each team. But the biggest thing was making sure you created and promoted equity. Like, if we're going to do this for baseball, we got to do this for softball. And making sure you follow Title IX and making sure that, but I always said budgets needed to be even, capital expenditures needed to be even. Like, you might get dugouts and they might want whatever, but you got to be equitable spending. So that was always important. And I think the other thing was listening to the student athletes, but making sure from a complaint side, like if they're going to come in and complain about Coach Neiman, I'm going to say, have you talked to Coach Neiman? No. When you go talk to him, you can come back to me. And then when they come back to me and say they talk to you, well, he said apples and we say bananas. Then I'm going to get you in the room with them and say, okay, apples, you go first. All right, bananas, your counter. And then we kind of talk through it and try to find a common ground. And generally, the student athletes are overstating it and the coach is kind of understating it because they don't think it's that big a deal. So I think one of my things I felt good about was I was able to give those students an opportunity to interact with adults, which I think you're going to have to interact with your sales manager someday or your general manager someday. So those are the big things. I mean, when we were in the private setting at Textile and Phil U, it was much easier to get things done. As society has gone on now, there's more levels, there's more CEO checks, there's more compliance checks. So it got more challenging as the NCAA got more challenging and technology got more challenging. That's a long answer, but
That's great.
how I tried to run it.
No, that's great. And you ran it spectacularly for all those years. So, I mean, me under you, I was under you for about a week. I don't know. You went out and left. But I do remember you saying, oh, we can't do, because me, I was after it a little bit. We can't do for one and what we can't got to do for the other. I remember that
Right.
part of it right out of the block. But what are the coaches, old and young, or guys have been around, or girls have been around? What misconceptions do they have? Misunderstandings of your job? What don't they get?
Well, I don't always think they understand all the other implications on wanting to do something. I'll give you a baseball example. So it's one of those days where it rained for 3 days and now it's 85 and sunny and it's supposedly game day. So, but the field is in such shape that if we play, we're going to dig it up for a week and have to cancel 2 home games next week. So better to postpone this one game today and get both games in next week. So a student athlete doesn't understand it because then there's consequences for physical plant. There's consequences for budget. We got to bring in maybe more topsoil, more Dynatex, whatever, the case would be. So it's always like players worry about playing. Administrators have to worry about all the trickle downs that come from that. We can't get the bus on campus and then cancel that game. That just costs us $1,500 for that bus because you don't want to go because you don't like Millersville's field. Like that, we can't do that. So I think it's making also having young coaches feel like, good example, basketball wears Adidas, and this person comes in and says, my team's got to wear Nike. Well, relax. You have no wins. Don't tell me you need to wear Nike. Just wear the Adidas, shut up, and win some games. We'll talk about it. So, you're too young to have a thing. So let's win some. Even in your case, when you showed up, you had no wins. Like, relax. Let's win a little bit. So
I did.
I think the answer is the trickle down. Everybody doesn't understand the trickle down or the political ramifications. The dean of students' son is coming to campus and wants to be on the baseball team. He stinks. He's just no good. Tim, he's got to be on the team. You understand me? That's the reality. That's what
You find a way. You find a way. Yeah, it's all those ancillary things that, I think with age comes wisdom. And I think, all the years I was to sales, 36 years, man, you start to realize more of that and be a little bit more sensitive,
Yep.
But it's not always what you say, it's how you say it to try to get what you want, and probably got more than more than I deserve, perhaps.
Yeah.
But
Well,
just
I think a good example
diplomatic.
was this year. You helped us host the regionals.
I
And I
did.
remember one day there was a real early start time for some reason, and our guys were complaining. And then I talked to you later, and you're like, Father Greenfield said, we're done by X because we have something tonight. And that's it. Like, you're done by X. So
That was exactly it. That's a great example right there.
Trickle down. It's all trickle down.
That was trickle down. That was quite a challenge without a doubt. But we did it.
Thank you. Thank you.
We made it. So from a budget resource standpoint these days, now where should the focus go? Where should athletic departments be investing, dollars if they've got some surplus to advance?
Well, I always tell coaches, and I try to explain it to players, there's really three things. First of all, there's fixed expenses. And I think the university has a responsibility to pay for the fixed expenses associated with that sport. We need to pay for the umpires. We need to transport you. We need to feed you. We need to uniform and equipment you. That's our responsibility. Then you get into variable expenses. Well, we would like a third set of uniforms, or we would like a winter coat because we play early in March. We would like to, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something. We want to go at least once a week. We want to eat at Outback instead of Wawa. Well, okay, those are variable. It's like you pretty much need internet today, but you can question your cable choices. You don't necessarily need Netflix, so it's variable. And then there's capital improvements / trips. So we want to go to, like your case, we want to go to Puerto Rico and help the young people there, or wherever you took your trips. We want to go, we want to get dugouts. We want to get, we want to rebuild the pitcher's mound, whatever the case would be. Then you have to start discussing, well, what do you want to siphon off your fixed expense money, or what are you going to fundraise? And then if you're going to fundraise, you got to talk to the fundraising department, because you don't want to go after Mr. Jones for $10,000 when Mr. Jones could give $100,000 in their opinion. So I think you have to put it into pockets and say, all right, Tim, I got number one. I got the fixed. Now, variable, let's talk about that. All right, well, we'll get one less pair of spikes if we can get 3 more T-shirts or something, whatever the case is.
Yeah. And
then, of course, the capital expenditure. So the problem is under Title IX, under Title IX, if you fundraise $20,000 to go to Florida for spring break, we got to send the women because under Title IX. So now it's like, okay, softball, you want to do what baseball's going to do? Then they'll say, we can't afford to do that. Okay, baseball, then don't raise $20,000 for Florida. We can't send you. So those are the budget issues you deal with. And my goal in being an athletic director before I left, I never accomplished it, would be, Tim, how much you need? We need $127,000. All right, here it is. Now shut up, go away, and just win games. Because you can never give a coach anything they want. But the other thing I did, I never gave a coach a budget. Because if I gave you your budget, it's $45,000. you're going to try to spend 50. But if I ask you what you want and I fulfill all of your needs and you spend 40, you're happy with me and I got $5,000 to go somewhere else with. So that's how I used to do it.
That's pretty good. I like that a lot. I think, for me, I understood all the fundraising and did quite a bit of it outside of baseball for the school. And I think if young coaches can understand those parameters and be able to do it, I think they can help themselves supplement a few things. Title IX's tough some ways. And I mean, I ran into it a lot where, you have all the context and all the network and right. Softball probably doesn't, so what's the answer to that?
Yep.
We need to take the team to the Dominican Republic. Okay.
Yeah.
So softball, I guess as long as they have the same opportunity, they may not want to go. That's a possibility as well. But it's like turf on a field. You're going to turf the baseball field, got to turf the softball field. So I think that does complicate things a little more, than people realize, but you have to have it. I mean, you have to have it. It's a law, so. All right. So
thing, I wanted to mention about for the young coaches, which I think is a really important point, is if you're working at Comcast and you work 9 to 5 and the person that you're with sees you at dinner every night at 5:30, and then you say, you know what, I really don't like it here, so I'm going to jump in and help Coach Neiman coach baseball at the sales. Their lifestyle is going to be so different. They're going to give up every weekend. They're going to be late night practices, early morning lifts, and that person you're with is going to really struggle. So I'm a big fan of, if you're thinking of starting out in this, and you're in a relationship, that person really needs to understand all the things that go along with coaching, which are not just 9 innings of baseball or 4 quarters of basketball, because it can really have a negative effect on relationships.
Absolutely. I've seen that. But it's so hard to get involved. And you got to be where your feet are and all that stuff. But you also have to support that coach, whether you believe in it or not. And you're probably not going to make any money for a while. You're just not. But if you can hang in there, like you have, like I have, what a career and what a rewarding experience it has been. So it's kind of big funnel, man. If I can get in, great. Now, how do I stay in? And how do I stay in that funnel? Because it's so tough to get involved. Last question for you, Tom, in this second segment. We all have mentors. You are, believe it, one of mine. We've got a bunch. Who was most influential in your life, and what meaning did that person have?
Well, I think the first was my dad. I mean, my dad was a World War II tough guy, and without question, there was just no BS. I mean, you did what you had to do, and I think my personality is directly attributable to the way he went about his business. No excuses, high expectations. The first person I ever met in basketball was a guy named John O'Connor. John was my CYO coach at Holy Family Grade School in Roxborough. And he's the one that really introduced me to the game and taught me the nuances of the game. And I'm still in touch with him, and I have the highest respect for him. And then he introduced me to Speedy Marsh, who, if you're from that Roxborough area, he coached at Rome, and that's where he kind of made his legend. And then he went on to Penn Charter and LaSalle and St. Joe Prep. But Speedy was kind of like, he's the guy I saw and said, wow, I want to be like him. Like, I just want to be coaching a game and the competition, and I got to know him through the years. The Oblates of St. Francis de Sales really helped me become a man, and allowed me to understand life, understand my faith, understand the pursuit of happiness. And I just think you put all those together, I think they're the people that have kind of helped me forge the road that I've traveled.
Yeah, we're visiting here again with the amazing Tom Shirley, sharing life lessons and leadership nuggets abounding. There's no doubt about it. So if you're listening, get a notebook. When the game is over, what will people remember about you? My book, What is Your Legacy?, challenges leaders, athletes, and everyday people to think beyond the scoreboard. It's about purpose, impact, and the mark you leave on others. If you are ready to define your legacy and live it with intention, this book will guide the way. Get your copy of What is Your Legacy today and start shaping the story only you can tell. And you can get that on Amazon, as well as Team Killers. And then in our last segment here, and we'll get in some more, we talked about coaching, we talked about administrative. I get into stuff that what makes Tom Shirley tick a little bit. And I think I know a lot of it, but this is going to be even more interesting things that we've already talked about. So you mentioned your age 71. I wasn't going to bring it up. I'm not much older. I'm not far away from you, but anyway, so what still motivates you? What keeps you going? What keeps you in coaching and doing all the things you do, Tom?
Well, I think the biggest reason I would say, honestly, is I spent my whole life kind of dedicated to the game. And along the way, I really didn't develop very many hobbies. Like, I don't fish, I don't hunt, I don't play musical instruments. And this is kind of my identity, if you will. And I still like it. So, like, I keep saying, like, what would I do on a Tuesday morning at 10:30? And I don't know the answer. So I may as well still go to school, talk to people that I know, have lunch with people that I know, help young people get better, and still enjoy the competition. Like, a lot of people want to play poker and you win or lose. Well, I like basketball, you win or lose. So I think it's just the idea that I still like what I do. And I say this all the time. For people that are thinking about going into collegiate sports or collegiate administration, our customers are only there 30 weeks. In a 52-week year, our customers are there 30 weeks. There's 22 weeks of kind of a jog or a walk. There's 30 weeks of a sprint. That's way different than a nurse. That's way different than a fireman or a police officer. God bless them for what they do. So
Absolutely.
It's a good profession in that you really run at it, but then you can recharge, and then you run at it, and then you can recharge. So if I'm healthy, why would I not? Herb McGee coached till he was 80 years old. So, I mean, I'm not saying I want to go that long, but I just think it's my identity and it's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, age is a number. I mean, you gotta have something to do and something to look forward to.
Yep.
That's for sure. And what you're doing and coaching have indeed built your own legacy and made an impact on all the kids that you've had all these years. What do you tell them now? What kind of guidance do you give them? Advice, not between the line, off the court. Maybe when you're there, but more so when they're gone.
Well, I always tell them that I draw a line on the board, and I put the B at one end and I put the D at the other end. One is born and one is dead. And I put my mark, which is about 3/4 of the way down that line, and I put their mark, which is about 1/8 into that line. And I say, between your line and my line, there's potholes. I'm here to keep you out of the potholes. That's my job. So, you're going to go for an interview. You're not wearing the jeans you got at Walmart that are all cut up. That's a bad idea. You're not wearing a golf shirt. You're wearing a suit if you're a guy. You're wearing a business suit if you're a woman. You're going to have extra resumes. You're going to, whatever stage of life that they're in. I'm going to apply for a job. Okay, what's your plan about asking about the retirement plan? What do you mean? That means you're going to get old. See that line? You're going to go to that line down there. What are you going to ask about retirement? What about sick days? What about personal days? What about long-term disability? So just trying to guide them, about life. Like, oh, by the way, you scored 40 points against Alvernia. Great job. What about the 401k? What about the Roth? So that's where I see my other role, if you will.
That's amazing. That's great stuff. I like that. I like the timeline. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
We're all getting to D. You're going to be a little longer than me, but we're all getting to D.
It's awesome. All getting a D. I might have to use that. I really like that. And it's kind of straight lines too. Like, how fast can you change the tire to reach, so to avoid D in your case, but how soon we can change that tire? Can we stay online? Can we stay focused? Hi there, young lady. You are beautiful. You are beautiful. So any decision that you have made, that if you look back, would you do it differently? Avoid pharmaceutical sales?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I would, this is way off target. I dated my wife for 7 years, and got married, when she told me, like, what are we doing here? I probably would have gotten married younger, and I probably would have hoped to have my grandchildren younger. I mean, I had my first grandchild at 60, which was pretty good, but now 11 years later, with a 1-year-old, you run out of gas. You don't have the energy. So I think, I had found the person that I wanted to be with, and I'm still with. So I think I would have done that a little bit earlier. But I think my aha moment was when I left Ford. I was making $42,000 and had a company car every 3,000 miles, 3,000. And I went to the sales for 17. So at the time, that was either like, you're out of your mind, or I think this will work out. But my mom told me, whatever makes you happy. My wife told me, you're going to work a long time, be happy. And then my father asked my mother if she dropped me on my head when I was young and didn't tell him because I was crazy. So, I think that was one of my, it was not a regret, but it could have been a regret if it didn't work out.
Yeah. Well, got to take chances and take risks and all that stuff. And obviously, I think because of your personality and your genes, the competitive spirit, man, whatever you decide to do, you would end up being an amazing success, which you've already been. And we touched on this next part a little bit already. So let's kind of clean it up. Again, if somebody wants to get involved in college athletics, they want to get involved, what should they start doing immediately tomorrow? What should they do? Where should they look?
Well, this is foreign to the young people today, but the world is about relationships. The world is about who you know. The world is about looking people in the eye, shaking hands, making people feel good about themselves. And like I tell my kids all the time, the world's about lipstick. I said, you go in and your teacher, and your teacher has a picture on her desk, and it's a picture of her family. You say, is that your family? And she says, yeah. That's a beautiful picture. I love that picture. Wow. Congratulations. Your B- just became a B because you did a little lipstick work. That's all. That's the key to success. You need to volunteer. Volunteer means you don't get any money, which everybody wants to get paid. Volunteer. Come in, like we just had Olivia Scotty come to us from DeSales, spent 2 semesters with us. And we gave her the whole buffet of athletics. Like, here's training, here's sports information, here's fitness, etc. So you got to get out there. You got to get known. So I would now be a reference for her. I will make a phone call for her. But if you're going to sit on your phone and you're not going to meet anybody and you're not going to volunteer, like go to the Broad Street Run and hand out water and meet some people. Like, you never know. But I would say when you want to sit on a bus and text the person on the other side of the bus, the future doesn't look too bright. You got to get out there and meet people.
Oh my God, that's exactly right. It's what they do. And, I always said, get to know as many people as you can. That's okay. Because we can all name drop and say, I know Tom Shirley, I know Herm McGee, I know anybody. Right. But the other part of that equation is get them to know you, get them to know you a little bit. And that's what a relationship's about, to try to, you never know. I always say you never know who's watching. We always say that. And it's the same in life and businesses, working camp or doing whatever, working at college camps, and, the coaches that are running it, the big guys that are there, they're not only evaluating the players, they're trying to see how you work. Are you sitting down? Are you, on your phone? Are you disinterested? You're not leaving a great first impression. And those are
Tim, the other thing I say to these kids all the time is when you leave an interview, what are you going to do? And they're going to say, I'm going to text a thank you. I'm going to email a thank you. And the answer is no and no. The answer is, how about this? Get a Hallmark card. This will be strange, but you actually have to lick it and put a stamp on it and send it back. No one will do that. What will separate you from everybody else? And it's not hard to be successful because the world's full of average. It's just full of average. Separate yourself. Wear a tie. Wear a business suit. Show up early. Have your car clean. You never know. You never know.
Be reliable, be dependable, be accountable. Those are not hard concepts, by any stretch of the imagination.
But they are if they're not stressed while you're young. It's all how the concrete dries. If you don't know to look somebody eye, would stand up when you shake a hand. You never sit down when you shake a hand. If you don't know that and you weren't taught that, you'll sit down and you won't impress me.
Not even a little bit, right? We just keep walking. Next, it's life's too short, man. We're going to get the right people on the bus and we're going to go with them. And, whether you conform or not, it's just the way it is. And guess what? This is real life, right? I mean, you and I could be here all day talking about these kinds of things. And it's the truth, these things are the truth. And if young folks are listening, parents are listening, whoever the audience is, on the Tom Shirley show today, man, I'll tell you what, get a pen and pencil and write these things down. And this is why we do straight lines, to try to help with some clarity, with some intention, with those responsibilities that'll make you a better person. That's all. Yeah, that's all. People ask me, what do you want in your tombstone? I was like, whoa, time out. No, I ain't there yet. I'm not at the D yet. But I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind if it was on there and said, he's a pretty good guy.
Yeah.
That's all.
I did my best. That's what I like.
I did my best. That's all. I mean, and we everybody wants to step on everybody else trying to climb the ladder. How about we celebrate their successes? Boy, it feels so much better, right? Celebrating the successes of others. Yeah. And how many, this, you live it, you see it. How many coaches are kind of jealous you won 80% of your games? Yeah, they don't. They'd rather see you lose.
Yep, that's exactly right.
It's unreal, and as if you're a coach in an athletic department, you're young, you may be struggling, but you know what? There's some people there that have vast experience that could really help you. And why not tap into that and celebrate their successes? Like, I'm going to bring them. My soccer season was 5-15. I hope basketball goes 5-15.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Come on. Just,
the
it's
other
okay.
Thing, Tim, and I say this all the time. If we went to a wedding, my wife, when we talk about what we do for a living and we get to me, the conversation will shift to sports. Not because it's me, just because everybody's going to say, the surgeon will say, man, I wish I had your job. That's a cool job. Everybody wants to be a part of sports in some way, shape, or form, or thinks they are. It's a really good career. It's a fun career. And I think young people should really think about it.
I'm very, for me, and again, thank you. I'm grateful I am to you, but I mean, it's just been a rewarding ride and a rewarding journey. And the timing for me was right to step off. It just was, and had some health issues lately. But, on top of that, I'm doing something else, maybe even a broader scope where I can affect more people, more young people, more professionals, more CEOs, all those kinds of things. And, I think the good Lord leads you and puts eyes in front of your head to see where you're going. And, it's given me a pretty clear, defined direction, and it has for you. And I don't know, it's been a great ride. Last question, my friend, goes fast. I always ask everybody, what does straight lines mean to you? You almost already defined it, but if you have any other thoughts on that, that'd be great.
I think straight lines means do the right thing. Like we all know what the right thing to do is in any situation. So just doing the right thing. And I always kind of kid around and say, if I lie to you, I could forget it, that I did it. But if I tell you the truth all the time, no matter what it is, good or bad news, I'll remember it because that's exactly what happened. So I just think, be ethical, do the right thing, help people when you can help people, pick them up when they're down, and develop relationships. Like you have acquaintances in your life, but somebody like you, to me, is a friend. You're a friend of mine. I could call you up at midnight if I had a jam and say, hey, Tim, I really need some help. And you need those people in your life. I call them 3 a.m. friends. You need 3 a.m. friends that you can call, and I might not even be able to tell you the problem. I just need you to be here. So you've got to spend time cultivating that. I always say to these young people, call somebody up. Call Coach Neiman up. Ask him how he's doing. Yeah, what's up? How can I help you? No, Coach, I just called to see how you're doing.
Yeah, how about that? We don't get that very often, do we?
Be respectful and do the right thing. So the other thing I want to make sure I add this. If I can help anyone out there, I can give them some guidance. I can answer a question. I could do whatever. You can always reach out to me at Jefferson in my email, which is tom.shirley@jefferson.edu. And it's on the website. And just let me know that we met on straight lines. And I'd be happy to help you.
Yeah, I wouldn't hesitate if somebody's out there that could use some of your guidance. I think do it. Just do it. We're all here to help. You know, we're not unapproachable. You know, that's for sure. I mean, this has been fantastic. Thank you for joining me on Straight Lines, where leadership lessons meet the game of life. If you enjoyed today's show, share it with your friends and colleagues. Subscribe and connect with me on social media for more insights. And if you want to dive deeper, check out the 2 books, What is Your Legacy and Team Killers. Visit CoachTimNeiman.com and check out the YouTube channel at the Neiman Legacy Network. Until next time, lead with clarity, play with purpose, and keep those lines straight. My friend Tom Shirley, I can't thank you enough. This was fantastic. I think we'll have to do it again sometime because we just scratched at it, man. We could take 1 or 2 of those things and, do an hour, no problem. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Anything for you, buddy.
Thank you, Tom.